guys, and thanks for joining me today as we continue to unpack James chapter 1, verse 2 that says, "Count it all joy when you fall into various trials." Last week, we learned that one of the definitions for the New Testament word count means to govern and to rule. And that's important because we learned that when life's craziness just comes at us and comes against us from all different kinds of places, that we can actually use joy to govern and rule our mind and our emotions. We learned we don't have to lose it. The second thing we learned is this, is that when we count it all joy, we can actually begin to govern and rule over the circumstances because we receive strength from God's joy at work in our lives. Today, we're going to look at the obvious definition of the word count, which simply means to add up and to do the math. Now, that definition is not hard for any of us to understand. However, counting it all joy is hard for us, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, but I know in my life, when I begin to do the math of my life, I don't like to count the bad days. I don't want to add in the painful places. I don't want the difficult season to figure into the equation, because I would rather just reject that and forget that. And we do that, don't we? We would much rather just add in, let's just add in all the good stuff, all the good days, all the happy moments. But guys, the Bible says, count it all joy. Why does it say that? I believe it says we have to count it all because it all counts. Listen, every moment counts. Every sleepless night counts. Every place of pain, every tear, every frustration, every offense, it all counts. And when you and I can learn to count it all joy, we can begin to choose joy in it, but we can also begin to command joy over it. I heard someone say once that life is kind of like baking a cake. Last week, one of my family members cooked a really good pound cake, and just thinking about that, there's a lot of different individual ingredients that goes into a really good cake. And most of those ingredients taste horrible by themselves. I mean, when was the last time you heard someone say, "Hey man, I really wish I had a tall, cold glass of vegetable oil"? When was the last time you saw somebody walking down the street chewing on a stick of butter? Listen guys, most of the ingredients of a really good cake, none of us want to eat by itself. But with the right mixture, and when it's all blended together right, and time or patience, you can get a really good cake. Guys, just like you can't reject the individual horrible ingredients and get a good cake, we can't reject the horrible individual ingredients and get a whole life. It's hard for us though, because we get frustrated, we get mad, we have a bad day, we say forget it. Have a falling out in a relationship, well forget that relationship. Going through a situation or a hard time, man, I'm just going to push this back. I'm going to ignore it and hope it goes away. And what we find ourselves doing is we think we have closure, but really all we're doing is living in denial. But I believe if we will realize three things, I believe our lives can get moving. The first is this, is that God's redemptive power is greater than our pain. The second thing is this, if we will learn to choose joy and God's supernatural joy in the midst of what we're going through, then we invite God, who makes all things new, to step into the middle of the situation. And the third thing is this, is that when we choose joy over situations that the enemy would love to take us out with, God's redemptive work begins to His redemptive power begins to work in our lives so that His greatness can be demonstrated through our lives. My prayer for you this week is this, is that you'll stop rejecting the parts of your life that you don't like, that we will choose joy, allow joy to govern and rule in our lives, govern and rule over the situations. Why? Because it all matters. Listen, your pain, the places of difficulty, your circumstances, it matters to God. And He wants you to count it all joy so that His joy can strengthen you and His greatness can be put on display through your life. Remember this, all things work together for the good of those who love God. Thanks for joining me today. Can't wait to be with you next week. Bye-bye.